Listen up or run for cover. Dropping knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it. The real Brad Lee is dropping
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, I got an entrepreneur, a real-life entrepreneur, David Hauser. What's cracking, Dave?
Hey, Brad. How you doing?
Good. Now, earlier we had a chance to chit-chat a little bit. You said you built a company called Grasshopper, sold it to Citrix. How was that?
It was a long 12-year process. We bootstrapped it, though, so 100% self-funded from $0 to $30 million a year in revenue, and we had a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah, I bet. What was the exit like? Did one day you were just normal, and the next day you woke up with a big chunk in the bank?
Yeah, that and left the company. So Citrix actually didn't want me and my business partner to stick around because we had built a...
Well, that's even better.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty robust management team.
But that's not normal.
No, it's not normal.
Yeah, usually they want you to stick around.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. It's like, dude, if you hand me $1 billion, not that they handed you $1 billion.
No, I wish.
But that's my goal. I want to sell Lightspeed for a bill. And I may not sell it, just, get it worth that.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like, it's crazy that you would say, one day you're just normal. And when I say normal, if you were doing 30 million, you were making good money.
Yeah, for sure. We lived in a house that we wanted, had a car. I mean, like all the things that we needed, right?
But when they exited and said, go home, that's when it's like perfect. Because if you gave me $1 billion, I don't think I could stay. Like, how do people stay?
Yeah.
Like, they negotiate, you're getting $81 million and you have to work there 3 more years.
Yeah, they put together some deals like that, long escrows, other stuff. For us, we just moved on right away. I mean, literally sold and left the next day.
So they cut you a check.
Yeah.
Was it a fatty?
Yeah, it was a great exit for everyone, right? So being self-funded, we had no outside investors. It was just us, me and my business partner. We carved out a big chunk for the management team and the employees, but the total exit was over $175 million.
Folks, pay attention. This is why I bring you knowledge, people that have it to the people who need it. So after Grasshopper, you decided, hey, I don't want to be bored. So you did what?
Yeah, so I talked to a lot of people before the exit, and the number one thing I heard from everyone was like, don't rush into anything, right? Like, you can do anything you want, just don't rush in. So I took a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and just did a bunch of little things. Spent time in San Francisco working with some VCs, understanding how much I liked or didn't like working with early stage companies. I'd made at that point 100 in angel investments before that.
Damn.
Found that I didn't really love working with early stage companies. So
why's that?
So I think early stage founders have 2 problems. One is they ask for advice and then don't take it. So I don't expect people to just listen and do it. But if they're not even listening to the advice, that's the biggest problem with the early stage founders. And then 2, without scale, it's very hard to implement a lot of the advice, right? So at scale, so call it $1 million a year or more, right? You can now have enough staff, consultants, employees, whatever, to implement the things you want to do and not just talk about them. So the stage of getting from 0 to $1 million is very difficult for a lot of people. But for me, is what's most interesting is helping people after $1 million.
Yeah.
So I found that out. Spent some time.
So small would be, or startup would be under $1 million.
Yeah.
And you decided, hey, I like it when they're making some money.
Yeah, I think it's just an easy cutoff to say what's product market fit, like where they have enough customers paying them that they can start doing things.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
And scale obviously changes each step along the way. Did some of that, spent time kind of bettering myself, tried doing all sorts of different things, invested in a restaurant, which is a great way to lose money. And
local?
Yeah.
What was it?
Bandito.
Where was that at?
It's off Flamingo. It's still there right now. But,
Did you lose a little chunk?
Yeah, of course. I think it's really interesting about food. Like, I've had this experience multiple times. Like, I ran a successful business for 12 years. My family didn't really understand it. Friends had no idea. Like, they're like, I don't understand what you do. Then you're like, well, I have this little restaurant. And they're like, oh, my God, that's the coolest thing ever. So people identify with it because everyone eats, right? And it's a great way to lose money. Great way.
Why?
I mean, most restaurants fail. It's tremendously difficult, even with great food, great staff.
Really?
There's a lot with location. Yelp is really hard. I mean, they just kill restaurants. Like, there's a lot of stuff I learned along the way that I would probably do differently. And I wasn't managing the business day to day, but yeah, I mean, if you look at a portfolio of things, restaurants is definitely not one that I would invest in.
But you would think good food, right? Good staff, and you're in business.
Yeah. Location.
All we got to do is get a few people in there and let the word spread.
Location is a lot. And then my experience with Yelp has been really interesting, right? Like I've been a Yelp user for a long time, but when you're on the other side of it, it's crazy the games they play. Crazy.
What, like?
Oh, so at the beginning when you launch, they'll drive a tremendous amount of traffic, right? So you're like, okay, we're starting to do well, right? After the second month, they just cut all of it off, and you have to start paying them a lot of money, right? And even if you pay them thousands of dollars a month, you can never get the traffic back up. So Yelp can make or break a restaurant, right? And even with 4.5-star reviews, it takes a number of years to catch up to the guys that have lots of reviews. So, I mean, Yelp can break restaurants really quickly.
Damn. Do they know that?
Oh, they know it, and they charge you. They charge you a lot.
Interesting. Damn. So you started a restaurant. That didn't work out. What else?
Played around a few businesses, helped out some of the companies I invested in, spent some like dedicated time with them, looked at buying companies, specifically SaaS businesses, ended up investing in
Dude, you never looked at this one.
This one didn't fit our profile for businesses to acquire, I would say. Probably a little bit too big in scale, but also you guys are profitable and growing. The businesses that are most interesting in the SaaS side are kind of low to flat growth, founders that are tired and want to kind of move on.
Yeah, that's us.
Right?
No,
well,
just joking.
yeah, exactly.
I'm joking. Did you do some consulting as well?
I did a little bit. I hated it. I think I took on 3 clients. I just hated it. One was a coaching client. 2 were kind of consulting. Just was not my thing. Not at all.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that love to pick your brain. Like right now, if I had opened the phone lines for David Hauser, people would start calling in with all kinds of questions. Because when you've exited once already, now you've got enough money to go learn and dick around and freaking afford to lose, but comfortably without stress, and angel invest and meet different people and watch different programs work or not work. You're able to start implementing that into the things you do get involved with, which is why a lot of successful entrepreneurs continue to succeed, because they're parlaying what they've learned into other businesses. They apply. You said something about health and wellness, that you just applied the same thing you did at Grasshopper to health, and all of a sudden, boom, that started working. See what I mean?
Yeah. I think I think what's really interesting to me is actually applying things learned in one industry to another industry.
Yeah.
So the example of that, right? So in Grasshopper, a software as a service business, we built a A/B testing machine. Like we did all of these things, right? Now applying that to a CPG company, which is what I'm currently working on, which is Superfat, like we're approaching it totally differently than everyone else in the industry, right? How do we look at customers? How do we look at lifetime value? How do we, do marketing and pay for all of those things? We're using the approaches we used in software as a service in a totally new space, right? And I think the results are starting to prove out that is working for us.
Yeah, awesome. So you wrote a book. What's the book called?
Unstoppable.
No shit?
Yep. And it's really funny. So it actually had a different title when we started. And we A/B tested the title on Google, and Unstoppable beat it out almost 3-1, the other titles. So we switched the title.
I was going to write a book called Unstoppable. I'll show you why when we're done here.
Yeah.
But that's a good name for a book.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't talk about the exit and the building of the businesses. It talks about health.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Like if you had asked me 2 years ago, would I write a book? I would have said absolutely not. Even about the Grasshopper experience and all of that, which, a number of people had asked, like, can you write about this? The book touches on a little bit of it in terms of background, but really the only crossover is the tools that we built at Grasshopper is what I used to change my life from a health and wellness perspective. And I had followed the traditional advice forever, right? Eat low fat, exercise. And like, I don't do things halfway. So when people said exercise, I'm like, okay, like I can go to the gym 7 days a week. That's not working. So let me just increase it. went from never running to running Boston Marathon, never swimming except like for fun to doing triathlons and a half Ironman in Texas, right? None of that worked for me. Struggled with weight, struggled with energy, all of those things. And I kept listening to the advice like, okay, well, I've invested in eating the diet I'm supposed to, quote unquote. And
Is that the blood diet?
no, that's just the traditional American diet, which is,
Oh.
high carbohydrate, low fat. Like that's what the government says to do, right? And if you ask any doctor, that's what they say to do. None of that works.
Have you heard of the blood diet?
No.
They take your blood. There's 4 types of blood mainly.
Okay. I just had my blood drawn this morning.
What kind are you?
I have no idea, but I
Well, I'm O.
I don't know. I draw my blood 4 times a year.
Well, find out what type of blood you have.
Yeah.
And then there's a book called The Blood Type Diet. And what they're contending is that the kind of blood you have will determine the kind of diet you need.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because I'm a O, which means I'm more of a carnivore.
Uh-huh.
Type A blood is more of a vegetarian. And if a type A person eats a lot of meat, they have a lot of problems. But if an O type, they don't, and vice versa. So then I run into a guy named Naveen Jain. You familiar with Naveen?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then he says, no, it's the gut biome. And
Yeah.
that one's more believable to me. It's like, hey, that makes sense.
I love the gut testing. It's just so early. The data is really hard, right? Like I've used all of them. I've used Viome. I've tested them all, right? It's interesting data right now. It's hard to get useful things out of it, right? Like there's not actionable things that come from it yet.
I thought the Viome, because I never did it only because, I don't want to shit on a stick. but from what I've been told, they map out what you're allowed to eat.
They do a little bit. They just don't know enough yet. It's still very early in this kind of gut biome space. We know that it's really important, right? Like that's the extent of what the real studies and the scientific reports say, is that we know it's important. It affects our brain. It affects digestion, obviously. It affects energy, heart health, all sorts of things, right? We just don't know exactly which bacteria do what yet because there's so many of them.
So what'd you find? Because you obviously found something that wins and you wrote about it.
Yeah. So what I did is I built a framework that allows me to quickly test all of these different things. So diet, exercise, sleep, supplementation, blood results, whatever it is, right, that I'm trying to optimize for. For me personally, I eat a high fat, low carbohydrate diet. It's kind of a modified keto, right? I think keto is starting to get a kind of difficult name in some places, but it's a trend right now. And that
I like it.
It works great for me. Right. And I think that's the important finding something that works for you is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because just because it works for someone else has zero relation to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it works for me.
Yeah.
And again, I always say modified keto because, yes, I kind of follow the keto, but not strictly. So I might not be in ketosis all the time.
Yep.
Like a professional keto implementer would be, but it works. Like I lose weight quick when I'm not eating carbs and sugars.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason it's become a trend is because it just works and it's so easy, right? Like all the other things.
And it's delicious, dude.
Well, that too.
Dude, I can go get a freaking big ass steak, dollop on some sour cream. I don't know if you've ever had steak dipped in sour cream, but it's good.
Some butter. I mean, you have everything on there.
Yeah, and you can just have it. Like wake up, fry up some eggs and bacon, power it down. You just don't get any toast, which before I'd never eat eggs without toast. Yeah. But hey, kick the toast, bacon, lettuce wraps, BLT lettuce wraps. Dude, it's like so good.
Everything.
Cheese, pepperoni, sausage.
The key though is like you said, like you're not in ketosis, right? I don't think the goal is or should be being in ketosis. The goal is having metabolic flexibility. So like if you start to look at the more interesting latest studies, it's about reducing insulin to a point where you can then still, again, eat a slice of toast once every now and then and it not affect your body, right? Not have a spike in sugar, not get all of the negative effects, right? So when you're eating in near ketosis or that type of high-fat diet, you restore your body back to what it should be. So then you can still eat an ice cream if you want or whatever thing it is that's important to you, right?
Yeah. What is your knowledge on oxygenation?
Pretty limited. I mean, I understand it.
Well, in 1923, apparently, there was some doctor that won a Nobel Peace Prize because he had proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, all scientific community still agrees that cancer, specifically, but also diabetes and other things, cannot exist in a high oxygenated environment.
Yeah.
So the reason, in reverse, that people get cancer is because they're not oxygenated at the cellular level, their mitochondrial level.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's very difficult. Like drinking lots of water does not hydrate you to the cellular level.
Yep.
So there's a guy in Hungary that has a daughter. She gets pancreatic cancer. Now, if you get diagnosed with that, dude, you're probably going to die. Would you agree?
Yep.
Well, this dude loves his daughter, oncologist, been studying for years, and knows full well that the cause of cancer is the mitochondria have a lack of oxygen. So he studied and tried to figure it out, and now he came out with a delivery mechanism where he can put liquid oxygen into your body, and literally his daughter, who had 5 months to live, has been alive for years and years, cured.
Yeah.
Incidentally, same doctor that treated Michael Jordan, or no, Magic Johnson.
Oh, okay.
So everyone always says, well, Magic Johnson doesn't have AIDS. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Same doctor cured Magic Johnson. So this liquid oxygen delivery mechanism, theoretically, and you know we can't say this or we'll get killed and sued and put in jail, but supposedly freaking cured the daughter's pancreatic cancer. She's still alive, diagnosed at UCLA, operations here, treatment here. Then she flew to Hungary, of course, where her dad did treatments of this oxygen delivery. And now she doesn't have any cancer. Now, if that's called a cure, I think it is. But we're not allowed to say it, so let's just pretend whatever. What do you know about oxygen?
Yeah, so I understand a lot more about breathing and the power of breathing, which I think most people have forgotten how to breathe, right? So just from the base level of like taking a deep breath and letting your stomach expand and actually taking all the oxygen into your lungs and then flushing it all out. So my understanding is kind of at that level.
You're making me breathe deep.
The power of breathing is quite interesting, right?
You're into yoga, aren't you?
I am.
So that's all into yoga.
Yeah.
And what is yoga based in? Buddhism or something?
No, so there's a number of different parts of yoga. A lot of it was in India. So if you look at kind of the heritage
Hinduism.
all the way back, there was no religious aspect to it, actually. It was pretty separate.
Well, because they're very peace and,
I think that's the misinterpretation, right? So like the yoga I practice is not that at all. It's very active, like lots of push-ups, lots of movement, lots of breathing.
And it's considered yoga?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because yoga is just a seat for meditation, which means the movement is absent of that, right? So the types of movement is just to get the body into that state so you can sit and meditate. And then the type of yoga I practice is just linking breath with movement, right? So that's all it is. Vinyasa yoga is very simple. It's Ashtanga, which is a very old tradition, which is all very active. It's jump back, push up, jump back, like again and again and again. In a very traditional sequence.
It's funny you say the breathing and the movement, because when I was a kid, I could run forever. Like literally, I beat people running long distance, and I was just a kid. And when I ran, I got into this groove where I would literally be going, and I just never got tired.
Yeah.
And I was, and every time with my steps, with my strides, I was going. And I was just, again, around this track 1,000 times, and I breathed the same the whole time, and I never got tired. You think there's some relation?
I think there's two things there. One is for sure you're taking in more oxygen by doing that intense breath and actually focusing on it. Two is just the mind, right? Like most of the time our mind gives up far before our body does. So focusing on that breath continuously in the same pattern again and again, your mind has no chance to say, oh, my leg hurts, my ankle, I'm tired, whatever. You're just focusing on that continuous breath again and again.
And you said our bodies give out longer. Say that again.
So our minds give out far before our bodies do.
Yeah, see. And folks, if you're out there listening, you're an entrepreneur and you're about ready to give up, again, 9 times out of 10, it's 100% in your mind that you're giving up. Like, you do have more in you. You just are choosing to stop. So in some cases, depending on who you are, keep going. So you started doing a little research because you seem like you're a little researcher of sorts.
I love data. I love analytics. I love all that stuff.
Well, dude, I need to show you ours and have you give me some pointers. But you got into this exercising and this yoga, whatever you just said. Say it again. I'm going to write it down.
Vinyasa yoga.
Vinyasa.
Yeah.
That's not like Bikram.
So Bikram is related. It's just that's a room that's 105 degrees. We practice in a room that's about 95 degrees. And it sounds like a small difference, but it's actually quite large.
Is there anybody that practices in a 65 degrees?
It's actually much more comfortable to practice in a warmer room. Because you're sweating either way, right? But when it kind of evens out with body temperature, 95 degrees when you're sweating actually feels a little bit cooler, right? Because our bodies are naturally warmer than that, plus the sweat. So it's actually quite comfortable, but it also allows you to move a lot easier. And I find for me, allows my mind to stop focusing on other things because you kind of just get into that much faster in the warmer room.
Mm. So you discovered it, and then what kind of benefits started happening?
Yeah, so I think the story of how I discovered it is quite interesting. So I was doing Ironmans and triathlons. My knees were hurting. Everything was hurting. I went into, when Lifetime Fitness here in Las Vegas opened in Green Valley Ranch, I went into a random yoga class. I'm like, you know what? I've done like one before in my life. Like, I'm new at the gym. I'm just going to go. Loved it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to a second one. Loved it even more. And I think the key reason at that time was it was the first thing that allowed me to literally free my brain and not be thinking about things, right? So I could be sitting at home with the kids, I could be at a movie, and I'm thinking about 1,000 things. What am I going to do? What do I need to do? And in those 2 classes, it was maybe for a minute or 2, but I did not think about anything besides what I was doing at that moment. And that was quite a change. So I went from that 2 classes to practicing 6 days a week, doing a 200-hour teacher training over a very short period of time, and now just love it. And it's part of my routine and part of my life. I can't imagine not doing it now.
And then the book is about that.
The book is about that journey of testing what works for you and finding the things that work for you.
So it's not a book that's going to tell me what you did. It's going to teach me how to find it, what works for me.
Yeah, it's going to do 2 things. One is give you the framework for how to test to find the things that work for you and your health and in your body. Then give you the key areas to be thinking about, right? So nutrition and fuel, right? So what are we eating? How are we sleeping? What supplements are we taking? How am I moving with exercise? What am I looking at in my blood? So beyond the framework, those are kind of the key areas. And what I tried to build was what I wish someone had built for me, which is I spent a tremendous amount of time and money on this. And the easiest things are actually some of the best things I've found. So I've tried to highlight those, right? So let's take sleep, for example, right? I've done in-lab and at-home sleep studies with the things all over your body, all this stuff, right? I've tried 100 different supplements. I've done tremendous amounts of things. The most simple stuff with the biggest impact is go to sleep between 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night, wake up naturally without an alarm clock, roughly 6 a.m. when the sun's kind of coming up. Don't eat within 3 hours of bedtime. And think about switching out your pillow and your mattress to find, is it either old or just not working, or is it something that would fit better for you? Like, out of all the things I did for sleep, those were the easiest. So that's all in the book, right? Because I wish someone had done that for me. And I didn't have to spend thousands of dollars and waste a lot of time.
Learning to get a better pillow?
Yeah, exactly, right? $100 pillow. And people laugh like, oh my God, it's $100. It's probably the best $100 I spent.
Yeah, and then go to bed at 9:30 or 10?
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, well...
What if you're watching TV?
Oh, well, that's a whole nother story. You want to kind of cut down on all the screen time as close to bed as possible. So I never watch TV in the bedroom, right? So the bedroom is for 2 things, sleeping and one other, right? And it's not work and it's not watching TV. Outside of that, I mean, the bedroom should just be that. I actually have a controversial theory that I think that sleeping together with a partner is actually not good. And if you look back, like there's been a lot of history where people slept in separate beds, right, for varying reasons. And I think it's probably healthier in general if we're talking about sleep, right? Not healthier necessarily for a relationship and other things, but if we're talking about sleep, I think sleeping in separate beds is actually one of the easiest things to implement if someone's on board with it.
Yeah. Shit, I'd be on board. My wife sleeps in the kids' room a lot anyway because they're little spoiled ones. So she slept with them when they're little. So now even though they're 4 and 6, they still come get her in the middle of the night and she goes in their room. I always wake up. I'm like, what the hell? So now it's like I'm used to almost sleeping without her.
Yeah.
I'm like, babe, we're gonna get some doubles in here.
Exactly.
So if I were coming to you and said, what do you recommend I try? What would you tell me to try?
Yeah, this is a really good question because I get asked this all the time. Like, David, how'd you lose 35 pounds? David, how'd you do this? And I think the misunderstanding is people aren't asking that question necessarily when they ask me, what did I do? They're asking, what can I do to be better, right? Like, what do I need to change? And while I can answer that for some people, right, I'd say the majority of people, first, changing diet, right? Like, that is just both easily and culturally accepted, right? Like, if you tell someone you're on a new diet, everyone's like, oh, okay, cool, right? If you tell someone you're testing sleep and doing blood tests every quarter, they're like, it's a little weird, right? Mm-hmm. So for most people, I would say just starting with diet is the most important, right?
And then make a big change too.
Yeah, I think I would.
Which one would you recommend?
So for me, I've tried them all. Like, I did vegan for 6 months. I've done everything. I personally like a high-fat diet, and I would say, for sure, if you were eating a traditional American diet of high carbs and crap, this will be far better.
And you're doing all the tests, so that's why I'm listening closely.
Yeah.
Because you ate all the high fats. Because you can tell me, oh, dude, do you know that red meats raise your LDL, and that's going to be a problem, and all that bacon's going to kill you? And I just think, oh yeah, I never thought of that. But I don't get my blood work, and most people don't either. So they read a study, oh, keto's terrible for you. No, you're going to get a heart attack with all that fat in your diet. What does your LDL say? Eating high fat.
My LDL is definitely high, right? So from a traditional perspective, first of all, I'm not worried about that. If you look at the data of the actual studies, low LDL actually has a higher incident of overall death than high LDL does, right? So now we can get into the details about like heart disease or not heart disease, and I am very comfortable with where my numbers are, but I only care about total.
What's your resting heart rate?
My resting heart rate for sleep, usually each night it's kind of in the 50s.
That's good.
Roughly.
How old are you?
37 now.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, it's fine.
Because my resting heart rate is 49.
Yeah.
I wake up with my little Apple Fitbit thing or my Fitbit.
But what you really care about is heart rate variability, right? That's much more important.
Does it measure that?
Fitbit doesn't.
Oh, shit.
The Oura Ring does. I don't have it on right now.
Dude, I was going to order one of those. Is that a good thing?
I love it.
Oura Ring.
Yeah, Oura Ring.
Folks, go get yourself an Oura Ring. It looks like a ring, and it's basically tracking all the shit you want to track.
It is the most accurate sleep tracker on the market today. And it gives you heart rate variability, which a few other devices do too. But that's the time between heartbeats. And so the data that's really interesting is as you exercise more, heart rate variability increases, and heart rate variability is much more closely linked with heart health than any of the other markers we look at, right? Because it's actually looking at the heart health compared to an LDL marker of risk or whatever else. But yeah, I'm fine with high LDL. It doesn't bother me. And the data is very clear on that. It's just the statin companies have marketed the shit out of it, and they make billions of dollars a year on selling statins to people who don't need them.
See, folks, but you guys better listen to old David Hauser. See, he's already spent the money and time and research nerding out on this shit, and basically can save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the book doesn't necessarily tell me do this or do that. It shows you what to do to find your own combination of what's good for you.
Yeah. And I think the nice part is the second part of the book also highlights a lot of these myths, right? So like the myth of calorie balancing, like that we can just eat high fat and not worry about it.
Can we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, I mean, that makes sense to me. See, when things resonate with me, it's because I'm 100% founded in logic.
Yep.
Like if it sounds logical, I'm going to listen a lot more. And it sounds logical that, hey, calories in, calories burnt. Do you have more than you burnt in, you're going to gain weight. I don't care if it's turkey.
Yeah, but so it doesn't work like that, right? So there's some interest.
But that makes sense.
It makes sense, but it doesn't always work like that, right?
Because then I also know a girl that had a hard time losing weight.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm down to like 1,200 calories a day, which is low.
Yep.
Working out like a banshee.
Yep.
Didn't lose any weight.
Yeah. So
well then,
I mean,
how come?
So there's a few things at play, right? So one is, let's talk about how are you able to eat relatively unlimited amounts of fat and still lose weight, right? So the way the body processes fat is very different. It doesn't raise insulin. It doesn't do other things. So the body, that's why it's called a keto diet, right? So when you are in ketosis or near ketosis, the body is burning energy in two ways that you cannot in any other diet, right? And that's one, your breath. So people say like your breath sometimes smells a little bit with keto. That's ketones, which is energy being literally just, you're breathing out energy, right? Which is way better than going to the gym. The other is pee, right? So you pee out ketones. Those two mechanisms that the body naturally does is what allows you to eat far more calories than what you're burning, quote unquote, and lose weight. The other is the fat signaling, right? So when you eat things like carbohydrates and fruit, the body is signaling internally for many hundreds of thousands of years of evolution saying, okay, I'm eating things that I need to start storing for winter, right? Because sugar was only available for very short periods of time when fruit was in season right before winter, right? So the human body says, okay, I'm going to start storing fat so I don't die in the winter. Now, the problem is we never have winter. Like we have summer 24/7, all 365 days a year. So we're just storing fat. And the body signals, all the hormones that have been built up over millions of years are telling our body to do that.
So fruit's not good.
Yeah, I mean, fruit in moderation. I tell people, like, eat fruit when in season for small amounts of time. Like, cherries are in season right now. I had some cherries yesterday. I like them. They're great. Would I eat them not in season, and would I eat a lot of fruit? Absolutely not.
Oh, but I love bananas and apples and oranges and grapes and strawberries. Like, I wish fruits were vegetables. You know what I'm saying? I wish cauliflower was cherries. Like, I'd never eat cherries.
Yeah, but the reason you say that is think about that, right? Your body loves that sugary taste because it was rare in our evolutionary biology, right? We didn't have it all the time. That's why we enjoy it. And that's why food manufacturers are able to create foods taking advantage of that. A certain amount of sweet with a certain amount of spicy makes it something we can't stop eating.
Yeah, like barbecue chips.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a little bit of sugar in them. There's still some spice. You can't put the bag down.
Yeah. This is interesting.
But you should switch to the pork rinds because at least they're still crunchy.
That's also keto, so I do eat pork rinds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow the keto generally, meaning if someone's bringing me a steak, I don't give a shit if you peppered it up with some seasoning and it's like, oh shit, there's sugar in that seasoning. Whatever. You know, sour cream, cheese, pepperoni, because there's a sugar in a lot of food. And I don't care. And I should care if I'm doing strict keto.
Yeah.
Like I really, really need to care because you want to get in certain states. And so I don't follow it that close. But no carbs, no sugar, no intentional sugar is what I do.
Look, I mean, if you're doing that, you're eating pounds less sugar than the regular American easily.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like, no problem.
Like I don't eat candy bars. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat Skittles. Like if it's, that's clearly sugar, cookies, cake, any of that shit. It's like, no, I'm not eating that. Ice cream. No, I'm not eating that. Sugar-free Jell-O. I'll knock that down with some sugar-free Cool Whip. Ooh, dude, that's freaking delicious.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what diet you're on. Jell-O and whipped cream is fucking good. Is it not?
I don't like Jell-O. I didn't grow up on Jell-O.
Strawberries and whipped cream?
Yeah, I mean...
And by the way, you can have berries on keto.
You can.
Blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, but still moderation, right?
Yeah, still moderation.
But they're delicious. And coconut, bro.
Yeah, love coconut. But all those things you can put heavy cream on top of.
What do you think of MCT oil?
MCT is an oil, a difficult one for me. I think it has benefits clearly from a brain and energy perspective, I think people are misusing it today to boost ketone levels, right? Like I could not be in ketosis and just take in a lot of MCT oil and on my blood meter be well in the 2s or 3s. But that doesn't mean my body's actually doing what I want it to do. So I think the misinterpretation is using it for the wrong thing. It is generally a good thing. I don't use it that much.
It's like brain lube.
Yeah, it's like it's an added fat that has some benefits.
Have you found any like unbelievable secrets?
Unbelievable secrets.
Yeah, like very few would ever take the time or afford the ability to go research. Like, yeah. Well, I was bored, so I went to the Himalayas.
Yeah, exactly. I wish there were things like that because I was talking to one of my friends about this book and he's like, dude, you have to have like a crazy thing because that's how you're going to sell books. Like eat 100 pounds of broccoli and, you'll lose, weight, right? I'm like, but that's not how it actually works, right? The things that work are actually quite easy, right? So I think I would pose a question of like, what has been the cheapest thing I bought that has the most impact, right? And for me, it's the Squatty Potty. Love it. No one ever wants to talk about poop, but it's like $15-20 and it's a really simple product. It's a stool, right? But
it's a stool for a stool.
Exactly. But it has a great impact, right? And I can't think of something cheaper.
Why does it have a great impact?
So it unpinches, so we get technical, it unpinches the colon, so it makes going to the bathroom much easier.
But was it hard before?
No, but it's just a big improvement. Try it. I'm telling you.
Well, I know, and I can already tell because you're analytical that like, a lot of times it's hard to tell things because you don't go in a certain condition.
Yeah.
So like, hey, work out, you'll feel better. And then I work out, I don't necessarily feel any better because I felt great before.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to tell unless you were feeling like shit and now you're feeling great. And then it's like a great contrast. You're like, wow, that works. But it's hard to tell when things work when you didn't have a problem before.
Yeah, I think about these as kind of
all
micro optimizations.
Yeah,
Very
you're
small.
just putting your feet up, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. It's really simple.
But you're putting your feet up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
And then when you say it's so much easier.
It unpinches the colon, right? So just going to the bathroom is easier, faster, but it's also less strain on the body. So poop is a really interesting topic, actually. And
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I probably spent far too much time in testing and thinking about it. But, poop is actually a marker for health, right?
Sure is.
If you understand what it means, it can tell you if you're eating things that your body agrees with or not. If there's allergies or kind of near allergies or sensitivities, it can tell you all sorts of things. But we've been told for so long, like just eat lots of fiber. So that is just the wrong advice, right? So eating lots of fiber is not what's important. Eating the right diet, so you go to the bathroom regularly. It doesn't mean every day, but relatively solid poops that don't need a lot of wiping, like that is a marker of good diet and good health. And if you think back evolutionary, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like we didn't have toilet paper a million years ago, right?
You had rabbits.
Yeah, but it wasn't being used because we were eating a diet that made sense for our bodies, right? Like it was not what we experience today for most people. But yeah, I love the Squatty Potty. There's probably about 5 of them in our house. There has to be one in every bathroom.
I'll get one.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
So a Squatty Potty, what else?
Trying to think of the best things over the last year. So what I really loved this past year is my steam oven. And it's a small one that sits on the countertop because the ones in the wall are like thousands of dollars and I didn't want to run water and replace it. It was like $200. It changed my life for food prep, right? Because I had been prepping food for a long time, but now when I put it in here, it slows down the process a little bit, so we're not killing all of the stuff in a microwave. But you put salmon in there, it comes out brand new, and it could have been cooked last week. That was a really cheap change that I really loved.
Just steaming food?
Yeah, steaming food.
That's how you warm it up?
Yeah, that's how you warm it up. You can cook food that way too, but I use it for warming up. So every lunch and a lot of dinners get warmed up that way.
Interesting. Steam oven.
Yeah.
Man, we're getting some good stuff today here. We got a Squatty Potty. Give me another one that that like most people would never know. Because I like this simple stuff. You know why? You can tell people simply how to do things and they still don't do them because they think it needs to be complicated.
Yeah. So another one, deleting social media from your phone. So we were talking earlier, and I said I've kind of stopped using social media in general for me personally. I still have accounts and whatever, but deleting it from your phone is actually one of the easiest little hacks that I've found, because what I think happens is, we pick up our phone in either awkward moments or moments of pause, or when we have a few seconds or a few minutes, right? And the first thing we do is we open up Facebook and start scrolling, right? When you delete Facebook and Instagram from your phone, what I found is every one of those little minutes became time that I could think about a problem I wanted to solve. So like that quote unquote free time that had been eaten up by social media, I got back. And I've solved difficult problems in those little minutes when I would have just otherwise done something else. Or I engaged with someone, right? Because we use our phone as kind of like that social shield a little bit, right? Well, I'm just going to use my phone instead of engaging with a person, if it's at dinner, if it's at drinks, or whatever it is. So, I mean, I did this 2 years ago and just loved it. And there's no way I'm adding it back to my phone.
Yeah, I if you go back maybe 2 years, maybe 3, I don't remember when I decided to jump back on social media. Because I was on and then I went off. And again, I was off and it was great. But the bad part was I didn't really get a lot of the news. Like I had to get news from everybody else. So the news on social media is like almost instantaneous.
It is.
So I was kind of out of touch there. I did enjoy not really having anything to worry about, or getting lost in pictures of pictures and comment and drama and stupidity. Not only that, but like social media sure caused a lot of relationship issues.
Yes.
A lot of cheaters getting caught. But at the end of the day, I did it. But then I also realized that the business had an impact. Like you need social media to for business.
Yeah.
Maybe not personal, but now I find myself back on it. And it's for business, but it's a personal brand and a business brand. And now I'm back on it all the time. Now, shit, dude, I'm sitting there with a free minute and I flip open Instagram, see who's texting, who's DMing, who's liking, who's not liking. It's crazy.
It is.
But it helps.
It does. I mean, look, we use it for our businesses, and I get it. It's super valuable. But I think removing it from your phone, you can still get the value from it from a business perspective and then not allow it to consume your time, right? So use it on your computer. Use it in a concerted way and a way that you've decided that I'm going to spend time doing X, right?
So if I were going to go buy your book, where would I buy it?
So it's going to be on Amazon, obviously, but unstoppablebook.com. You can sign up for the email list. You can get early access. It goes on pre-sale this week or next. I also have a weekly email that I send out from there with all of these little tips and tricks. What am I reading? What am I doing?
What are you reading?
So I just drove here from Texas 2 days ago and finished reading Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinkerton. This was a book that was recommended by Bill Gates 2 years ago, I believe. Love the book. It's really the opposite of all of these doomsday scenarios. It reminded me a lot of Evolution of Everything by Matt Ridley. And really kind of digs into the real data behind, like, what does climate change mean? Like, what are the things that are impacting it or not? How is the time we're living in now actually more violent than in the past? And the answer is no to all of these things. Like, the story we hear is very different from the reality, and the reality is very positive and kind of a mindset of abundance, right? So it was a great book. It's pretty long and dense, but loved it. But the email is kind of usually 3 to 5 bullet points, really simple stuff. Like, here's what I'm reading, here's what I'm doing, watching, whatever. And my kind of quick 3 or 4 sentences about it. Because I get so many email newsletters and I read so few of them because they're so long and dense that I can't engage with it. So I wanted to create something that I would actually engage with. And so far it's been going well.
Unstoppablebook.com to get the tips and tricks from David Hauser, who's been all over the world testing them out for everybody. Just lollygagging.
Yeah.
Killing time. Learning. You seem like a dude that wants to learn a lot.
Yeah, I have a goal of learning at least 2 new skills or things every year. So if that's playing golf, shooting, like, just to expand my horizon of things to do, but also like continuing to keep the mind learning, I think that is one of the most important things.
I would agree with that. Constant. Like every day I try to do that.
Yeah.
So folks, if you're listening to this, and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? They're talking about health, wellness, entrepreneurial, sellout, or exits, they're called. I say sellout. Here's the thing you have to really think about. How much shit has he learned that you can just go tap into, almost like Cliff Notes, right?
Yeah.
What if you could go to college, learn everything you need to know that's going to be valuable, and leave all the other shit there? Well, go talk to someone who's been to college and then went out and succeeded and say, hey, what did you learn in college that's helped you? And they'll say, more than likely, nothing. But if they were to say something, go study that. Like, dude, success leaves clues, no?
Yeah.
Dude, I want you to come help figure out. See, I'm one of those founders that do listen to advice, first of all. But second of all, this is like a 20-year-old startup, this place. Like, we've never marketed.
Yeah.
We're built just because of the product's quality and everything's sound. But if someone came in and said, I'm a marketing expert, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Is someone to go tell the world why everyone needs Lightspeed, just like, writing a book, but digital.
Yeah.
Because you can write a book, no one orders it. Now you're screwed too.
Yeah, I mean, so all the businesses I've built have actually, interestingly enough, been 100% based on marketing, right? So the product we had at Grasshopper actually was, I would consider it okay, right? Like, we did good enough, right? What we did really well was we figured out how to market to small businesses and entrepreneurs in a segment that's expensive and difficult to do, and we drove the CPAs.
How'd you do that?
We approached it very differently than everyone else, and we looked at it more as a consumer brand and a consumer marketing approach. So very direct response, go to the website, sign up now, radio advertising, print, all of the things you would do for a typical consumer product, we did for a quote-unquote business product. But our customer was 1 to 10 employee companies, so we had to approach it differently. And that's how we kind of approach all of our businesses, is like, how do I create primary demand? Because the worst thing I ever hear from people is like, well, my competitors are doing this. I'm like, I don't care about competitors, 1. And 2, your customers shouldn't care about them, because you should be generating primary demand where these customers only know about your solution, and then there's no reason to look anywhere else, right? That to me is, if you can perfect that, that's where scale comes in a business.
Now, would you consult a company on that? Shit, you're local, bro. Let's make a deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've definitely worked with companies on that. I think what's interesting, like what you guys are doing, is like, you have a reasonable amount of scale already, and there's so much you could do with that, right?
Huge.
Where
and I'm sitting here going, damn, should I go this way? Should I go that way? And it's like, people always ask me, like, Brad, what should I do? I'm thinking, shit, I don't know, dude. I'm figuring it out too. Let me hit $1 billion. Let me exit, even not for $1 billion, but let me get where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then let me take a year off, and then I'll come back around and start answering a bunch of people's questions. But like, I try to get the knowledge out there through podcasts and courses and things that I do. But damn, dude, there's a lot of options.
Yeah.
A lot of options. Like, even if I were looking to sell right now, dude,
yeah.
I'd want you to come in here and say, dude, watch out for this and watch out for that. Because, dude, there's people that have sold out and stayed broke.
Yep.
Because of the deal they made, they didn't realize. Or, hey, yeah, we're going to do a $2 billion buyout, but you're only getting $30,000 in stock, and then the stock ends up being worthless.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, what I learned along the way is like, the thing we hear about is the amount of money, right? But what's more important is the deal terms, right? And there's a few tech companies that are notorious for this. They'll put out a massive number, right? Like, we're going to pay $2 billion. And when you actually sort through the deal terms and look at what's happening behind the scenes, after the announcement, they've whittled that down far. They've used escrow and other ways to do this. They've used long-term payment structures and whatever else, where the $2 billion becomes $250 million, right? And that's still a tremendous amount of money, right? But we hear about the $2 billion. So the deal structure and terms are quite important. And if you had asked me that before the sale, I would be like, I thought it's just a number, right? Like everyone else. So I learned a lot.
I sold my company for $100 million. They picture you just got $100 million check in your hand.
Yeah, you got suitcases of cash and walking around, right?
But that happens too.
It does, but it's not the
norm.
The norm, right?
Yeah, the norm is some sort of structure.
Yeah.
Where you don't really get all that.
Yeah.
How do you get all that?
I mean, I think you have to have a company and a fit with the acquirer that is a really strong fit. So you have ability to negotiate those terms.
Or have revenues that will replace that investment within 3 years.
I mean, look, revenue is the ultimate lever in all of these scenarios, right? And then the second one is profitability. If you're profitable, there is no reason to be acquired, right? So now the conversation has changed from like, well, our runway is 18 months or 24 months and blah, 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 to, you don't want to buy us? That's fine. We're making a tremendous amount of money, and talk to us in 2 years and we'll be 10 times the price. So what do you want to do?
Right? Yeah. Well, that's the position I like to be in.
Yeah.
See, I always tell people, I don't screw people over, but I like to be in the position to.
Yeah.
That's called advantage.
It's power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people don't get that when I say that. They're like, oh, that's rude. Dude, you don't have to screw people just because you can.
Right.
But to be in the position to have the power, to make the demand, to, have the deciding factor, the upper hand.
Yeah.
It's just a good position to be in.
Yeah.
When
I
we're
think
little,
from a company perspective too, it's interesting because like when you're in that position, it means you're running the company well, profitable, good reporting, good people, like all of those things that add up to that is what makes a great acquisition target, right?
Absolutely.
Running a good business.
Dude, I'm gonna have you back on another episode because we could talk about a ton of shit.
Oh, we could talk the whole episode about acquisitions. Like we were 2 weeks away from the acquisition falling apart.
Then what?
We didn't know it at the time, but literally 2 weeks after, 2.5 weeks after the acquisition, Citrix, one of their activist investors, sent a letter saying, dump all of your SaaS products, don't invest in anything. And that day, all open acquisition deals stopped. And that was two weeks after our deal closed, right? So like, you don't know these things when it's happening. And, people around me always said, oh, be very careful and it could fall apart at any time. And every conversation is an opportunity to fall apart. And I understood it, right? They're saying, don't count the money before you get it, right? Great advice. But I didn't understand how real that was, right? And how many deals do fall apart because of random stuff that's outside of your control.
Now, I'd normally tell people to go follow you, but they can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is @DH. Instagram is Hauser. The easiest thing is like I've tried to move all of my content that I put out to the email. So it's once a week. It's easily consumable compared to like this ongoing stuff that's happening on social media.
Yeah, so if I followed your account, you might post here and there.
Yeah, not very often.
So go follow him. But more importantly, sounds like go to unstoppablebook.com, register for his newsletter because it comes out with valuable tips, and pre-order his book called Unstoppable. And I would imagine you can pre-order that at unstoppablebook.com.
Exactly.
See how that is? And folks, if you hit when this episode airs, share it out there, tag David Hauser on Instagram, tag me, and talk about what do you want him to come back and talk about next. I mean, he just gave you some freaking unbelievable information. I'm interested in the book because I want to figure out how to figure shit out. See, it sounds like that book has a process to where you could apply that in other things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I stole this process from continuous integration frameworks and testing frameworks in business, and it works really well. I mean, we built a culture of this at Grasshopper, and now for health, it works really well too for finding what you want to do, not what I want to do.
Yeah, but that's the key. That's the key I keep preaching. If you heard any podcast or any of my social media, people always say, what's the key to success? I say, there is no key. They're like, what do you mean? It's a combination. You're looking for a key to unlock a lock, and it's a combination, man. Everybody has their own combination of things, and that goes with your health, that goes with your relationships, that goes with your taste.
Yep.
Like some people like girls with big asses. Some people like skinny booty girls. Some girls like dudes that are buff. Some girls like dudes that are skinny. Yep. Some dudes like dudes. Some girls like girls. Everyone has their own combination. What makes you happy is what matters. The difficulty is how do you figure out what that is? Because, dude, it's harder to figure out what you really want than it is to get it.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think it has to do with very quick cycles in testing and feedback loops. So how do I figure out how I'm happy or what makes me happy? We can talk about these big grand things, right? Or we can just talk about little things. If I do this, if I watch an hour less television, am I happier or not? Right? Like literally that small a thing.
But how do you know? Because, dude, if I didn't watch TV, I would be unhappier.
So, I mean, that's for you, right? So, like,
Because I like TV.
I like it too, but I stopped watching news. So the key for me was I used to have like CNN on in the background, right? One day it stopped working. The next day I felt better. I'm like, that's weird. And I tested it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a week without it and then do 2 days on and see what happens.
But you must have been very aware of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of this is all being aware.
But how do you develop an awareness?
Being present in the moment. I think yoga helped me for that. But one is just the mindset of thinking about it is one. So
being intentional
thinking and saying like, how do I feel? So like the easiest example is a headache, right? I can get a headache and I can just take an Advil, right? Or I could say, wait a second, rather than taking it and let me experience it, feel it, and most importantly, understand what actions came before and after it so I don't get the headache again, right? And one of them was eye strain from looking at the computer. So another tip, right? So install either Iris or Flux on the computer to reduce the blue light and make it a little more orange. That changed. I got rid of headaches like that just by installing that app, right? But the only reason I even thought about it was because I said to myself, why am I getting headaches? Okay, when I look at the computer longer, here's what happens. If I, what are my options? Because I have to look at the computer. It's my job. Like, it's not like I have no options, right? But I can try to fix it. There's glasses you can wear. For me, the easiest thing was to install the software. I mean, it takes 2 seconds. You set it once and you never do it again.
So in closing, if there's 3 things someone's going to get out of this book and what you want them to do, which is, and again, folks, he doesn't want you to do it. He's telling you if you want more information, here's how you do it. But what are the 3 main things you think they would get if they go over there and drop their name?
Yeah. So in the book, for sure, busting a lot of these myths about the things we've been told about health and wellness and how it not necessarily, it has not worked for us as a group of people and specifically me and others, right? I'd say the importance of sleep and how to make those small optimizations. For sure, diet and fuel. So like, how do I find the right fuel plan for me? I can tell you what works for me, but it's finding what works for you. And then the last thing is kind of shortcutting all of this in this chapter of micro optimizations, right? Like, how do I make these really small changes really quickly that just have large impacts, right? I'm all about how do I do the least amount of effort for the largest return. I'm not looking for easy things. I'm looking for the lowest effort, right? Which could mean a tremendous amount of effort. But that's the filter I use, and that's how I filtered everything that went into the book.
It's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming in, David. Folks, go follow David. Go to his website, check out his book, give him some love, give him some support, and most of all, give the podcast a share to your friends and relatives. You never know who you're going to help. Join me on my mission to get the knowledge from the people who have it, like David, to the people who need it, like maybe some of your friends. So go out and share that shit. Until next time.